but we should forget about it. My answer is that certainly Imam Hussein alayhi salam did what he did not for power, to convey a message to the Ummah. And that is something which we have to bear in mind. He was not an ordinary man. He was not a man to be after power. We know that during the whole reign of Muawiyah, 10 years after his brother Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he did not actually move to seize power or anything like that. So what he did, the way he behaved, and the movement was to convey a message, not to the people of his own time, because people of his own time were quite aware of the situation and they did not want to listen to him. He wanted to pass the message to people who come in future generations. And that is why we need to commemorate him year after year, to make that message heard by us and by others. Now, what do we learn from Imam Hussein alayhi salam in his movement for our present situation? What message he conveyed which is useful for us today? Now, I have listed these things here in terms of message of Imam Hussein for all times. And this, of course, is not particular to one time rather than other. And sometimes, of course, some of them would become very prominent in certain times and era. Now, the first thing is that Imam Hussein was a very tolerant person. And when we see that he rises and he stands up against Yazid, we have to bear in mind the past history of his tolerance. Of course, tolerance without compromise. And this is shown in Karbala, no compromise. But tolerance was there. During the whole reign of Muawiyah, for 10 years after Imam Hassan alayhi salam, although Muawiyah violated the treaty, the peace treaty, which was signed by him and by Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and one of the most outstanding violations was that he had no authority to appoint anyone as caliph after him, and this was written in the treaty, and he violated that. He appointed Yazid as his successor. So, despite all these, Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not make any move. He was quite tolerant of that, and this was not the only article of the treaty which was violated. Many other articles of the treaty were violated too. So it is important to bear in mind that Imam Hussein was a very tolerant person. If Yazid had not asked him to pay allegiance to him, I believe from the history that we read that he would not have actually made a move against Yazid too. It was Yazid's mistake to force him to pay pledge of allegiance to him that forced him to make a move. Otherwise, as I said, he was quite a tolerant person. However, this tolerance did not mean that he was going to compromise on values. And that is exactly what brought Imam Hussein to stand up against Yazid. Now, as long as, of course, Yazid is made a caliph by his father or whatever, and the Muslims did not care about it and did obey him, feared him, it wasn't a big issue if he did not want to endorse his Khilafah of Rasulullah by Imam Hussein. When it came to this, now this was violation of the values. How could he actually endorse the Khilafah of Yazid by paying allegiance to him? This is where, of course, he stood firm. In his conversation with the Amir of Medina, when he summoned him to pay allegiance to Yazid, informing him that Muawiyah has passed away and Yazid is not the caliph and you have to pay allegiance to him, he said what I have written here: أيها الأمير إن أهل بيت النبوة وموضع ومعدن الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة. وَمَحْبِطُ الرَّحْمَةِ. We are, of course, the Ahl Bayt of the Prophet. We are the mine, the bedrock of the Risala. We have brought up in houses where angels commuted and communicated with the Prophet. And بِنَا فَتَحَ اللَّهُ وَبِنَا يَخْتِمُ. God opened the creation with us and would end with us. Of course, this is a very well-known statement, which I don't want to delve into explanation now. And وَيَزِيدُ رَجُلٌ شَارِبُ الْخَمْرِ وَقَاتِلُ النَّفْسِ الْمُحْتَرَمَةِ مُؤْلِنٌ بِالْفِسْقِ. Yazid is a man who drinks wine, kills innocent people. He openly commits fisq, not like his father who did fisq but hiddenly. Openly he does. وَمِثْلِ لَا يُبَايِعُ مِثْلَهُ. And someone like me would never pay allegiance to someone like him. And also when he wanted to leave Medina, because they were going to force him to pay allegiance, he wrote to his brother. He said to his brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, "Ya akhi, لو لم يكن في الدنيا ملجأ ولا مأوى لما بايعت يزيد بن معاوية." If there is no place of refuge, if there is no place of abode on the earth, because Muhammad ibn Hanafiya was worried that what are you going to do? No one is going to help you, no one is going to support you, and you are just wandering around the land to do what? He would seize you eventually. He says, if there is no place of refuge on the earth, I'm not going to pay allegiance to Yazid. So this is no compromise on values, and this is something that we have to learn in our modern world as well. Sometimes we are actually compromising our values. We are somehow trying to justify violation of the values by certain situations, certain excuses that we bring. We have to learn from Imam Hussein salam. Although tolerance is a very good thing, although being able to adapt to different cultures, different societies is very good, but when it comes to values, the main values, the values which are the bedrock of Islam, we have to stand firm on that. The third thing that we learn from Imam Hussein alayhi salam in his movement was that always he sought the pleasure of God. It was not for power, it was not for victory, it was not for him becoming a spiritual leader. I mean, even you can say someone may like to become a spiritual leader to guide others. It was only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma inni uhibbu al-ma'ruf wa unkiru al-munkar wa as'aluka ya dhal jalal wal ikram bihaqq al-qabr wa man fihi illa ikhtarta li ma huwa laka ridan wa li rasulika ridan. When he wanted to leave Medina, he went to bid farewell to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he said, Ya Allah, you know that I like ma'ruf and I hate munkar. So I ask by the honor of this grave and whoever is buried in it, the Prophet, peace be upon him, that you choose for me whatever pleases you. I am not actually determining or asking something which pleases me. I want something, whatever you think that pleases you, bring on my way. And also in Mecca, when he wanted to move out towards Kufa, he said, "La mahisa an yawmin khutta bil qalam." There is no escape from the day which is written for every one of us, the death. رضا الله رضانا أهل البيت نصبر على بلائه ويوفينا أجور الصابرين. Whatever pleases God is the pleasure of us, Ahlul Bayt. And for that pleasure, we would persevere and have patience on His trials and tribulations. And Allah, inshallah, will give us the reward of the Sabirin. The other thing that we learn from Imam alayhi salam, I mean, these lessons are very precious, and especially in in modern time, which we are actually somehow putting the pleasure of human being uh, to be the center of everything. God, pleasure of God, is so far away from our calculations. I mean human beings in general. I don't mean individually. Some of us are, of course, very, very much after pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what we experience in our modern life is that God is absolutely expelled from human life. And what is important is pleasure of human being. What pleases you, what you enjoy is the value, and you have to pursue that. This is exactly against, of course, what we learn from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The other thing, the fourth lesson, is that the book of God was the blueprint for his action. Everywhere you see that he recites the verses of the Quran. He argues with anyone who confronts him with the verses of the Quran, and also to the people of the Kufa, the letter he wrote to the people of the Kufa, pronouncing his acceptance of the invitation. He said, فَلَا أَمْرِ مَا الْإِمَامِ إِلَّا الْعَامِلُ بِالْكِتَابِ وَالْآخِذُ بِالْقِسْطِ وَالدَّائِنُ بِالْحَقِّ لِلَّهِ. I swear by my own life that Imam, the only person who can be the Imam, is the one who acts based on the book of God and based on justice, and da'inu bil haqq lillah, and judges based on haqq and nothing else. So this is again one very important lesson we get from Imam alayhi salam. Now, the other thing that we learn from Imam alayhi salam is that throughout his journey, he was trying to educate people. He was trying to explain things for the people. Sometimes we think that if we are right, if we are on haqq, then we don't need to explain it for others. We just act based on that haqq. Now, what Imam Hussein was trying to do was not just acting based on haqq for himself. He wanted to educate everyone based on that haqq. He wanted to make everyone aware of the situation. And people were important, although they abandoned him, but still for him they were very important. It was very important that they knew what was going on. And in many of his sermons and in many of his letters, he actually made it very clear that it is the important thing is that we have to explain for people what we do. People are important, and we do it honestly and not just in a very political and diplomatic matter. We try to speak to people. Now, in his wasiyah to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, this very famous sermon, أني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا ولا ظالما. I have not come out, I have not moved out for glory, for pleasure, to do corruption on earth, to oppress, but إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. I have come out to make reform in the ummah of my grandfather, and the rest of the things that he says here. We don't have much time here to go through all of that. So we see that throughout his journey, he was trying to educate people and inform them of what was happening. Absolute confidence in God, and that is another lesson we learn from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When you are determined, when you know that you are on the right path, then you should not be afraid of anything, because Allah is going to be with you all the time. When he came out of Mecca, Farazdak, who was a young man at that time, the famous poet, poet. He was going to do Hajj, and he asked him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, why are you going out of Mecca now? It's your day of Tarwiyah. People are going towards Arafat and Mina. Now, why are you going out of Mecca? Imam explained for him the situation, and then asked him about what is happening in Kufa, because Farazdak was coming from Kufa. Farazdak said that قلوب الناس معك وسيوفهم مع بني أمية, something in that vein, that the hearts of the people are with you, but their souls are with Banu Umayyah. And this shows how unfirm these people of Kufa were. They still knew that Hussein was right. They still loved Hussein. But because they were afraid of Banu Umayyah, they had given their swords to Banu Umayyah. Now, Imam alayhi salam, and then he said, Lillah al-amr, all the affairs is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he would judge. Imam alayhi salam says, Sadaqta, yes, you are right. Lillah al-amr, wa kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'an. Yes, of course, the affairs are in the hands of God, and every day he has a new verdict, and we don't know what is he going to destined for tomorrow. إن نزل القضاء بما نحب ونرضى فنحمد الله على نعمة. If the destiny, if the verdict of God is issued in the way that we like it, we praise him on his bounties and favors, and he is of course the helper. He would help us to pay thanks and shukr for it. وَإِنْ حَالَ الْقَضَاءُ دُونَ الرَّجَاءِ. But if the destiny stops short of what we hope, brings something that we do not like, فَلَمْ يَبْعُدْ مَنْ كَانَ الْحَقُّ نِيَّتَهُ وَالتَّقْوَى سَرِيرَتَهُ. So if it doesn't work the way we like it and we end up in death, then this death would not take anyone far from God if they have the niyyah, haqq in their intention, and taqwa in their souls, in their heart. So you see this sort of absolute confidence that he had in God. He tried to bring peace in the ummah until the last minutes. He tried to negotiate, to advise, to instruct, to admonish whoever came on his way, so that the war did not happen. The Muslims would not kill the grandson of their prophets. And this is again one other thing. As long as we can, we have to work for peace, unless if it is not possible. Also, he sought help from people. It was very important for him that people would come and take part in his mission, so that first of all they become prosperous by actually being on the side of the grandson of the Prophet, on the side of the Imam, and also it is by people that prophets can win, or if they don't have the people, they would lose. That is the law of the human society. And we will see, I don't want to read all these Arabic and translate them, but what it says is that when he was passing towards Kufa, he wrote to the heads of Basra asking them to come and help him, and he said, أنا أدعوكم إلى كتاب الله وسنة نبيه فإن السنة قد أميتت وإن البدء قد أحيت. I call you towards the book of God, towards Sunnah of the Prophet, and we know that the Sunnah is now dead, is killed, and Bid'ah has been revived. إن تسمعوا قولي وتطيعوا أمري أهدكم سبيل الرشد. If you listen to me and follow me, I will guide you to the right path. The other thing that we learn from him is that he was very honest with the people. And this is what we don't see in politicians nowadays. The reason people do not like politicians is that politicians usually deceive, put spin on everything. They speak in one way and behave in another way. They are not honest with the people. They give them promises that they cannot fulfill and they would not fulfill actually, and we see this. And that's why they say Islam and politics, religion and politics should be separate from each other because in nature they are different from each other. No, of course, the modern politics, the politics that we see now, which is deception, which is betrayal of, and not keeping promises, yeah, that is of course not part of any religion. But the true politics, which is looking after the affairs of the people, religion cannot remain, of course, indifferent towards that. Now, the politics of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what we see is that he was very honest with people. Anything happened, some people, for example, when you heard on his way to Kufa, 2 people came and asked him to have a secret meeting with him. They wanted to break the news of the Shahada of Muslim ibn Aqil and Abdullah ibn Yaqtur to him, that your messengers are killed. So they wanted to break this news, but they said, we want to meet you in private. Okay, they met in private. They said to Hussein alayhi salam what had happened because they thought he didn't want to break this news to his followers because they would panic, they would go away. They know that now the people of Kufa have betrayed and have broken their pledge. But as soon as the news was given to him, he came out, he gathered his followers, he made a sermon and told them, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, amma ba'd, فَإِنَّهُ قَدْ أَتَانَا خَبَرٌ فَرِّيءٌ قتل مسلم بن عقيل وحاني بن أروى وعبد الله بن يقطر وقد خذلتنا شيعتنا فمن أحب منكم الانصراف فلينصرف ليس عليه منا ذمام. Terrible news has reached us, a heartbreaking news has reached us, and that is the murder of Muslim ibn Aqil, Hani ibn Urwa, Abdullah ibn Yaqtar, and our Shia has abandoned us. Whoever now would like to leave us and return, they should do so, and I have taken my pledge away from them. That means that they are not obliged to follow me. This is absolute honesty that a leader can have. This is good for the politicians of our time to learn, that they have to be very honest with the people. Of course, there are certain secrets of the state that if everyone knows, we know that there will be chaos and the enemies would make advantage of that. But there are certain things that people are directly related to the fate of the people, and they have to know about it. So honesty was another thing that we learned from him. And the 10 is that lessons from the past history. Always he had this in front of his eyes. What has happened in the past? What other people do in the past? So he was on a sort of very enlightened platform about what Muslims were going to do. It was something similar to what other people did in the past. And there is an example here that you may read yourself later on. Giving the right meaning to bidding good and forbidding evil. Usually we think that bidding good and forbidding evil, Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, means that, for example, if someone does not pray, we tell him, you better pray. Or if someone, for example, does not observe some Islamic law, we go and tell him, you have to observe it. Although these are from Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, but the right meaning of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, as he said, Uridu an amura bil Ma'ruf wa anha anil Munkar, is that you organize for it, you plan for it, you have to do it collectively, you cannot do it single-handedly. And of course, if what is at stake is very, very important, then you put your even life on that. Planning for results, as we see throughout his journey, although he had the knowledge of Imama and what was going to happen at the end, but he just acted as a very sort of a mundane leader. I mean, by mundane, I mean just any other leader in this world that they want to have a movement. He planned, he sent letters, he sent people to find out whether, for example, the people of Kufa were right or wrong. He planned, even after his messengers were killed, he planned how to make the next move. So these were very important things that we learn from him. Not deceived by righteous appearance of people, and that is another very important thing. And if someone has a righteous appearance, is, for example, observing all the Islamic apparent injunctions, but in the heart is away from Islam, he was not deceived by that. And the 14th lesson that we learn from him is, of course, sacrifice. That is the most outstanding lesson of Karbala, that he could actually give away whatever he liked. Giving his own life was very easy, of course. I mean, all of us would like to become martyrs, and it is not something that Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not like to do. But bringing all his children, all his cousins, all his brothers, and putting them on that forefront of sacrifice, it was something which was amazing. And this is a lesson which we just actually can praise and commend. We are not able to follow and imitate. Now, what we deduce from the incident, very quickly, in 5 minutes I mentioned this, what we deduce from the incident, first is that Muslim nation is not different from the previous nations. Previous nations, despite having the name of Jew or Christian, but Allah tells us that many of them are kafir. Of course, kafir in the eyes of God, not kafir in the eyes of their own co-religionists. إن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين في نار جهنم. So the Ahlul Kitab, among the Ahlul Kitab are certain people who are called Ahlul Kitab. They believe in Torah, they probably practice, but they are kafir. Why? Because they do not observe the most important elements of faith, so they become kafir. Muslims can become like that. I mean, do we really believe those who killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were Muslims? Although they said they were Muslims, they prayed when they wanted to attack, or Umar ibn Sa'd called out, Ya Jaysh Allah irkabi wa bil jannati abshari, all the army of God, ride and you rejoice with the good news of paradise. So they were actually calling themselves Muslims. They were praying, they were fasting, they were making vows. Their women were making vows that if, for example, we win over Hussein, we do such and such for God. But still they are kafir. I mean, this nation is not different from other nations. However, this brings one very sensitive issue, and this idea of takfir. We know that many Muslims are actually deviated. Many of them are perverted, actually. Not only deviated, perverted. I mean, this is what I believe about these Al Saud. I mean, they are not only deviated, they are perverted people. Now, what would say they are Muslim or kafir? If we say they are kafir, then we are actually falling into this trap of takfiri issue, where every Muslim are making takfir of other Muslims. If we say they are not kafir, then what about all these verses of the Quran which talks about kufr of certain people of Ahlul Kitab, for example? Now, we have to have a very clear-cut criterion here. We are not allowed, as long as someone says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, no matter and of course they conform with the main very broad tenets of Islam, then we are not allowed to call them kafir. But it doesn't mean that in the eyes of Allah they are not kafir. They are Muslims. And this is exactly what the Quran talks about previous nations. Inna alladhina kafaru min ahlil kitab means you regard them as ahlul kitab, but they are kafir. I regard them as kafir. So there are certain Muslims that God regards as kafir, but of course we do not regard them as kafir. For example, if someone doesn't go to Hajj, despite having the ability to go to Hajj, and despite having the istita'a to go to Hajj, do you call him kafir or Muslim? You call him Muslim, of course. We say he's Muslim but fasiq. But Allah says, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Everyone who has a means to go to Hajj should go to Hajj. This is a right of Allah on people. Anyone who rejects this becomes kafir. And that's why we have in a very beautiful hadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, he explains for us different meanings of kufr. Now, why I went into this length is because this nation, like any other nation, has people who are regarded to be not Muslims but in the eyes of Allah, although their appearance is Muslim. Although, for example, the appearance of some people or the way their rituals and everything is like Jews or Christians, but Allah does not regard them to be Jews or Christians, and the same with us. This ummah can commit things that other nations have committed in the past. They killed prophets, they killed people who did Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, and this ummah did the same. So they are not different. They vary in their acts, and these, as other nations did, we know that other nations had different ranks, and we have different ranks as well. They can reject to defer to the Book of God as previous nations did. ألم تر إلى الذين أوتوا نصيبا من الكتاب يدعون إلى كتاب الله ليحكم بينهم ثم يتولى فريق منهم وهم معرضون. Have you not seen those who are given a share of the book? They are called to towards the Book of God to be judged by that, and then they turn away. Well, the same thing in this ummah. And in this ummah, there are people who are wishful, as other nations were wishful. For example, they said, لَنْ يَدْخُلَ الْجَنَّةَ إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ هُودًا أَوْ نَصَارَى. They say only Jews enter paradise. The Jews say. The Christians say only Christians enter paradise. And we Muslims are wishful as well. We say only Muslims enter paradise. These are the things that absolutely are rejected by the Quran. It is not wishfulness which brings salvation. It is practice. It is following the book, the scripture, which brings salvation. Not because I am a Christian, because I am a Muslim, I'm born a Christian, I'm born a Muslim, I'm born a Jew. These are the wishful things that previous nations had, and this nation, despite all that they have done in history, for example, the most, of course, abhorrent of all, the killing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, still they say that this is al-ummatul marhuma. This is just like Jews saying that we are the chosen ummah. It is not. It doesn't work like that. Allah judges everyone based on their actions. And the last thing that I mentioned, I finish, and the rest of the slides, I think there's only one more. That's the continuation. The last thing is that this ummah, parts of this ummah, can be cursed as other nations were cursed. We know that Banu Israel, Allah cursed them not on the tongue of ordinary people who were la'an or sabab. No. Look at this verse here. لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. Those who became kafir among the Banu Israel. Now, those who became kafir among the Banu Israel don't think that they went out of the Jewish faith. No, they were inside the Jew. Some of them were rabbis. But still, Allah says they became kafir among the Banu Israel. They rejected Jesus. Okay, that is enough for their kufr, that Allah would judge them as kafir. Those who became kafir from among Banu Israel, they were cursed on the tongue of David and on the tongues of Isa ibn Maryam. Now, why ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ? Because they disobeyed and transgressed. Still they were calling themselves Jews, but they disobeyed, they transgressed, and they were, of course, cursed. كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. The thing which is very important here is that they did not stop and forbid one another from the wrongs that they committed. Surely evil is what they did. Now, even in this ummah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ عَذَابًا مُهِينًا. In Surah Ahzab, those who torment Allah and His Apostle are cursed by Allah in this world and in the world to come, and has prepared for them humiliating punishment. Now, this humiliating punishment is because they are humiliated by curse in this world. Allah would curse them, and therefore there are some people who say that we should not curse at all. No, Allah uses this curse in the Quran for not only for this nation, for previous nations. Not only for previous nations, for this nation as well. Those who annoy the Prophet, those who break the heart of the Prophet, these are the ones who are actually cursed. However, of course, we do not know the instances of these people. The only thing is that if our A'imma, if the Prophet have cursed anyone, we curse them as well, because we know that they are far away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, I'm sorry about the way this session started. It was very terrible, and I hope that this very rushed and hasty presentation would have been of any benefit. Thank you very much. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin.